Okay, let's try this for the third time. For those of you who are joining, we're trying for the third time. Today is International Men's Day, and super excited to be hosting this conversation on the UN Women platform to talk with actor and activist Noah Centineo on gender equality and the fight for equal rights. Let's see. Yes.
Look at that.
Perfect.
It's so funny whenever we try to make things work on sometimes with IG Live, it like not for whatever reason, but I'm super glad I can see you and I can hear you. What's going on?
I know I'm super excited to kind of be able to do this. So excited to kind of have the UN platform to host this conversation.
Mhm.
For those people that don't know, today is International Men's Day, which is kind of the day to thank male allies across the world for their work to stand up and fight for gender equality, which is absolutely amazing. But also very soon, on the 25th of November, is 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And it's kind of a campaign that the UN Women kicks off to really encourage men to get involved in the fight to stop violence against women and kind of be on the right side of history as a feminist. So I definitely want to start off with a very popular question that I think I know the answer to, but for those people that don't know, Noah is an incredible actor and activist, but my question is, are you a feminist?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a feminist. I mean, in terms of meaning, it's simple, right? It's the belief that men and women are equal culturally, socially, politically, at work, in school, at home, everywhere, period. End of story, right? So I feel that as a feminist man, my job is to uphold and support women in my circle and in my industry, in my world, and in my space. So, yes.
That is absolutely amazing. I definitely expected that answer. And I think the fact when people are asked or just talk about feminism is kind of we have to talk about that feminism isn't about kind of pitting men and women against each other, but the idea that we're equal, and it is about equal rights and equal opportunities. And
Mhm.
I think kind of going off that, there's a lot of myths about feminism and being a feminist, and especially as kind of a young male being somebody that is a feminist, what would you say are kind of ways we can combat those myths surrounding feminism?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like when someone says that they're not a feminist, my first question is, do you believe in gender equality? And the truth is, I don't know if there's ever been a time when someone's answer to that question has been no. And then when they respond yes, I just reiterate that that's what makes a feminist a feminist. And clarifying the definition is eye-opening for a lot of people. And one way to take down that myth. And also the idea that women are superior to men, I mean, isn't the true nature of feminism. I mean, that's a manipulated version of the movement. And it's usually perpetuated by people who themselves would prefer to not support gender equality. Um, and also, unfortunately, this myth that feminism is a militant belief that women are better than men. I mean, it's not just untruthful, it's the most damaging. So I think shedding light to those myths and understanding what it is, to be a feminist and what the feminist movement is, I think shedding light on that is one way to really debunk a lot of the myths.
Right, right. And I think a big thing about feminism is kind of this idea of equality between men and women. And I think in order to be a feminist, you kind of have to realize the importance of equality. And I think what would you say is like, why is equality important in your opinion? That we have equal rights and equal opportunities between men and women.
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I feel like it's a basic right. I don't understand why there's ever a moment where there's a differentiation here of one human being to another when it comes to wage, when it comes to life. I don't know why my computer is deciding to start and unstart and reset. um, I mean, to be a feminist man means to question the privilege that you've retained your entire life simply for being a man, right? It's like, to me, it means standing up for the women in your life actively and loudly,
Right.
regardless of if your friends think it's cool or not. So I feel like, why should women and men have equal rights? It's a question of, why are we even asking that question in the first place? Let's go back to the derivative that suddenly made women lesser than for some reason.
Right.
You know,
Right.
because they're not, obviously.
I completely agree. And I think to kind of go, somebody had kind of submitted a question kind of prior to the conversation, a UN Women follower. And they really want to know, Armin, his question is, have you ever experienced a specific situation where gender inequality in your industry was really apparent and you kind of realize this is something that you're interested in and something that you have to speak out about or just be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happened in my industry. There's still a lot of uh, predation that occurs, with men in charge. And outside of that, there's like leading women not making the same amount of money as leading men, or not getting the same faculties on a set, or I've seen it firsthand, without a doubt, and I've done everything in my ability to combat it, in ways that I can. But it also, I think, it became more apparent and more real to me over the last few years as I've started to understand the business side behind, the formation of films and projects in general.
Right. Right.
Especially with favored nations. I think, like, you start to really, like, when you start to, like, do, not just, it has nothing to do with favored nations. It has to do when you start entering different fields and industries, whether it's business or it's acting, you get a little bit more of a perspective. So I think it's
Right.
something that is starting to, and my sister too. My sister's 18 months older than me, and so, I live with her. So, living with her, she's definitely, like, opened my eyes a lot.
Right. Right. And I think that's incredibly important that you also brought up something that you're really engaged with, which is favored nations, which I'm an incredible fan of. I think it's doing incredible work. And for those people that don't know, Favored Nations is kind of an organization that Noah founded, that aims to get young people mobilized to act on social issues, and has done really incredible work. And I'm really interested to know kind of, we kind of introduced you as an actor, an activist, and I think we really jumped into your ideas of feminism and activism, and then kind of going back into first being an actor and then making this transition into kind of having a social platform. What kind of encouraged you to kind of do that, and really get involved in a lot of different social issues, especially with an organization like Favored Nations that you kind of started?
Hmm. I mean, I was brought up in a family, that encouraged empathy for, like, everyone. So I'd say it started with my upbringing. Um, I lived my life selfishly, or pretty early on, once I started to work as an actor regularly, once I had security, just like, when it came to my own survival, not having to really worry about where my next paycheck was coming from, or, where I was going to sleep, etc. Not that it was ever, not that I ever really had to worry about those things, but, I was living selfishly, and I realized that, I wasn't happy at all. Um, and it kind of became a necessary step in my life to feel, uh, like I was passing along a lot of the blessings and a lot of the freedom that I started to gain. So I think that was the reason why I started, taking a more active role. Also, I'm not really passionate about one initiative, or one industry. I'm passionate about helping other people be passionate about whatever it is they want to be passionate about. And that's really my thing. My thing is not to like reinvent the wheel when it comes to the water crisis or human displacement or gender equality or my goal is to locate wheels that are doing extremely great work in those fields and then help them spin faster. So that's
Right. Right. That definitely makes sense. And I think as kind of an organization, one that you kind of created, it has done a lot of that work in a lot of different spaces. And I'm really interested to know kind of what is coming up for favored nations in kind of in future social issues. If
mhm,
there's anything kind of surrounding gender equality,
mhm.
and kind of that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's on our radar without a doubt. This year, 2020, I mean, took us for a spin, right? We had a whole plan to focus on different, five different or six different pillars, um, branching from human displacement to social justice, and
Right.
everything in between and around and above and below and inside, whatever. And then the global pandemic, COVID-19 happened, and then it was an election year, and then the BLM movement really took hold, and so we decided to put our attention on those spaces because we felt that they were important. And if there was any place that we could lend our platform to, that's where we wanted to. But moving forward into the next years, we want to maintain that ability to be flexible, but we also want to start to target and have a little more planning to as far as execution. And gender equality is definitely on our radar for that.
Right, right. And I think one of the things you kind of mentioned was kind of showcasing people with a platform, and kind of not reinventing the wheel.
Mhm.
I'm really interested to know for you specifically, who are kind of some people, females that you look up to and women that inspire you. I know you mentioned your sister, but who are some more people that kind of really inspire you that are females every day?
I love the work that Zendaya does. Yara, she's incredible. Alma Harrell, I believe that's how you pronounce her last name. Sorry, Alma. And I haven't met any of these people. I love the work that they do in their fields, and then also as like activists, and as like megaphones. I have a friend named Laura Walker Lee who's been greatly helpful as not just a mentor, but like a teacher and also just like a great friend. Um, yeah, I mean those are just some, but there's a bunch of role models for sure. You,
Right.
and
I no, for me specifically, I think no, you're the kind of work you're doing is so incredible. I have kind of been a fan of a lot of your work for such a long time. Especially kind of to all the boys I loved before. I think Lana is such an incredible actress. So amazing. But yeah, I also wanted to kind of turn it to some questions we got earlier, and kind of somebody had asked, how do you kind of hold yourself accountable in kind of remembering to talk about issues like this, and just being socially engaged? Because I think a lot of young people, especially, it's very easy to kind of miss that and kind of unplug and not really stay engaged and informed. How do you kind of continue doing that as kind of a young person? Because I know it's difficult, and I think you're doing a great job in kind of doing that. But yeah, how do you kind of do it every day?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a moment by moment thing, right? Like standing up, in moments on the street with strangers. If you see a man catcalling a woman, and like bothering them or following them, to intervene, or if it's just with your friends or your peers, or if you're at a social setting, which doesn't happen often anymore, but let's say you're at a social setting and you're noticing, behavior like toxic behavior that's sexist in nature, not being afraid to stand up. I mean, I think one of our biggest roles as men, especially now, is talking about it. And it's not enough to just believe in feminism. It's not enough to just be a feminist. We need to say it out loud, right? This movement is not aided by us just because we agree that women and men are equal. It's aided when we march at the Women's March. It's aided when we call out our male friends, our male colleagues, and it's speaking up when something is not right. And using my privilege as a man to uplift and push women forward, I mean, that's what it's all about. And I don't know what kind of person feels good about moving up in life simply because of their gender. Like when we as men benefit for seemingly no reason over a woman, whether it's fiscally with a promotion, as a guy, you gotta ask yourself, like, why is that? When you're able to get through a statement or a story without constant interruption, but she's not, you got to ask yourself why, and then you got to do something about it. You got to call out what's happening, and you have to interrupt the interrupter. And personally, like, to hone in on my industry, it's something that's very important. And what areas of my industry, are women disrespected? Are they underrepresented? Are they closed out? Just being aware of these things and
right.
trying to make some sort of difference.
I definitely.
You're gonna come back, or maybe I'm the one that's not. Maybe Mike. Hi, there you are.
I can hear you. I think it cut off from I think it cut off from kind of your sentence with women in your industry.
Yeah, there you are. Hi. Yeah, just honing in.
Yes, go ahead.
Honing in on your industry, right? And what areas of your industry are women underrepresented or being disrespected, or where closed out? Back maybe if the live ends. Oh.
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me the whole time when I'm talking to myself?
I pretty much heard you the whole time.
Oh, so is it just me that's cutting? Am I cutting for you?
I think so.
Oh, God. I'm sorry.
But I can hear you. I can hear you.
I probably sound like a fool.
No, I can hear you. You can kind of finish what you were saying.
Well, that's it. Just to hone in your industry and to do what you can to rectify, when women are underrepresented or disrespected or cut out. It's not something that one person can do. It's something that we all have to do together.
Right. I absolutely love that. I also love that you're super engaged in kind of the conversation, and really kind of know what you believe in and how you can kind of have that spread in your circles and the circles that you kind of are engaged in, but also the people that follow you. I think it's really important that we talk about issues like this, and we kind of have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Slight technical difficulties, which I think we had a bunch of today. But I think also, kind of to wrap up, I know we're kind of low on time, but
I'm
I
cool.
I think the UN women told me to wrap it up.
Oh, oh, okay. All right.
But also, I do want to kind of end off with a really broad question, which I think I love asking people. But how can men kind of stand up for women's rights every single day as as kind of something that they do, any man across the world, and stay engaged in the conversation? Like, what would you say is that one thing they can continuously keep doing? Feel free to think about it for.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to do. Read books or try to have platonic, meaningful, intimate platonic relationships with women.
Right.
Is something that actually is very beneficial as well. Um, don't worry about that. To stand up, even though you might feel like you're not cool in the eyes of other men, right? To challenge these roles. Something that we didn't talk about that I think is so important about this conversation is that we the gender equality is not like a woman battle, right? It's not a female battle. It is for men as well. Men
Right.
are extremely suicidal. Young boys feel like they can't express themselves or their emotions. And they feel like if they do tell their friends, I'm sad, I'm not okay. If they're crying, it makes them less of a man, as opposed to making them more masculine. And it has led to I think there's a reason why almost every mass shooting is done by a male. It's like we're taught from a young age in family structures and social structures to express our emotions in an aggressive way, maybe in anger. We're taught and conditioned to be dominant and to dominate people and things, and to conquer them because that's what men do. And it leads to so much repression that it's destroying the human being. It's not a way to live. And then, of course, with a destroyed human being, there are going to be consequences. Um, and so I think for me, there is a huge side of this where being a feminist is also, it's not just also, it is helpful to men as much as it is to women. And we need to stop looking at it like it's one-sided. It's not. It's like it's for all of us. And so I guess for one thing that young men and men can do is there's this word. It's like being vulnerable. It's something that vulnerable enough to be wrong and to say and to accept the fact that you might be wrong. Vulnerable enough to be brave enough to look like the fool amongst misogynist or sexist people, right? Being vulnerable, I think, is a huge key, and practicing vulnerability, being open to it. I think if men were more vulnerable, young men were more vulnerable, if people were more vulnerable and allowed themselves to be more vulnerable, there might just be a great breakthrough, because then there's more room to expand. There's more room to learn. There's more room to speak up.
Right, right. And I think with that, one question that I now want to know is, has it ever been difficult for you to be vulnerable, or a time where you felt isolated for kind of having these opinions? Because I know a lot of young men don't have these opinions and they
Mm.
don't want to be vulnerable. And so how has that experience been for you? Because I know it's not something that's like very common. Um, and so how is that kind of experience been?
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger in like middle school, it sucked. Like it was like pretty shitty. Um, because I, as a young man, like I hadn't built a lot of my own confidence yet. So um, you're more shatterable. You can just shatter if someone says one thing mean to you. It doesn't even have to be sexist. Doesn't have, it's just like someone can say like "fuck you." Sorry, I don't know if I can say that, but it could like really hurt you if you don't have your self-worth and your self-value, staked down. Um, so I think when I was younger, at times it would hurt, and being vulnerable, it felt like, oh, you shouldn't be vulnerable. And I definitely locked that part of myself down after like middle school because I went, oh, well, I don't want to have to deal with bullies or emotional whatever. I'm gonna I'm gonna sit in the back of class and I'm not gonna engage and I'm not going to talk a lot and I'm not gonna befriend people. I'm just gonna shut down and be that kid who like sleeps through the entire day. And I lived my life like that for years until I finally woke up one day. I was like, I'm acting this way because like a group of 5 kids were mean to me when I was 13 years old, and they are still running my life, and I'm 17 now. What am I doing? And I kind of had this moment where I just kind of went, who am I? Like I'm going to go back to whoever I was way before that. And it was liberating because it doesn't matter. Now I don't care. Someone like if I'm with people and they catcall, I slap them. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What do you think? You think it's like what year are you living in, man? And they're like, oh, whatever. And it's like, no, it's like it's not whatever. And is it a little uncomfortable? Maybe, but like ultimately, it's 2020, and those people are like, oh yeah, you're right, or they're like, oh, whatever, and then you move on, So I think surrounding yourself though with the right people is super important. You can't surround yourself with people.
Right. I completely agree. I also think that when you do kind of take a stance on issues for a lot of kind of the young men that are tuned in and that are watching this, like it is difficult. You don't kind of have this ease of kind of doing it and kind of having these opinions, but having them is important. And kind of in this fight for gender equality, it is really important that people kind of have these opinions and do kind of act on them. But couldn't agree anymore.
Well, I also, if I can interject, it's also like as a young man, as kids in middle school and elementary school, and even high school, and even in college, as young. But by the time you're in college, it's like you've cooked as a child, you're baked, you're pretty much out of the oven. They say that once you're 13, actually, you're kind of setting your ways, which is crazy. But a lot of people say, in middle school, that kid that sticks up for girls, might be looked at or ostracized. He might be looked at as an outcast or a weirdo, or he might get beaten up or bullied. And it's like, you can't put the pressure of this issue onto a 13-year-old boy to stand up. He should, and I hope he does, because it's powerful, and it also helps define him and his values. But it needs to be on the teachers. It needs to be on the families, the mothers, the fathers, the guardians. It needs to be on the older siblings. This problem is unfortunately now it feels like it's for the younger generation to solve, but it's not. It's for the new parents, the kids that are having, the kids that are having kids, the kids that are 30 years old, the adult kids. They need to teach their kids. They need to teach their children proper value. Because you can't just have a kid who's 13 years old show up to school and try to undo another 13 or 15-year-old's whole life experience in one moment where he stands up to them. And could it? Yes. And it might. And honestly, like hopefully that person who's sexist or anti-feminist and who does something, hopefully they take a moment and realize what they've said. But it's up to that kid's parents. It's up to the family. It's up to the educators, the proctors. It's up to all of the conscious adults in our society. And it's not just in America. 200 million girls have been mutilated right around the planet. This is like a world issue. It's up to the adults and the new parents to really, really change the way that our culture I lost all my speed. It's up to them to teach the kids, It's not up for a 13-year-old boy to figure it out for another kid, you know? So I just want to say that as well. We need to fix the way that adults operate, but can't teach an old dog new tricks, as they say. So you have to teach it to
Right.
them when they're in their like 30s, I guess, and 20s, and hopefully we figure it out.
Right. And I think that there's definitely still a really long way to go. I mean, a lot of people kind of think we've kind of reached gender equality, but according to the UN Women, if we go at the current rate, we'll only achieve it in 100 years, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So I couldn't agree anymore about kind of understanding kind of people you need to target to really create this change and doing it in a way that actually gets through to young people. And so when they
Hmm.
grow up, they also grow up their kids in that way.
Hmm.
But love that kind of train of thought. But yeah, to kind of wrap it up, before we log off, I kind of wanted to reiterate the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence that's starting on the 25th of November. Um, and everybody is invited to join. The UN Women kind of encourages everyone to kind of use their platform to stop violence against women and girls in whatever way they can, and follow the UN Women to kind of stay engaged, stay informed, and that's really how we can kind of continue these conversations in your own circles, and kind of have these ideas that you can then kind of share with people and hopefully grow up your kids to have these ideas as well, which is kind of what you talked about.
Hmm.
But yeah, super excited to kind of have done this. Really, really such a fan of everything you've done. Kind of as an actor and activist, I kind of love that kind of tagline. But absolutely like privileged to be able to kind of talk with you and really love the conversation on the UN Women platform. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that tuned in.
Yeah, thank
Sorry to
you.
get to questions and things like that.
Thank you so much for having me. I mean, I really appreciate this, and you know, this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't reached out to me. So I really, you know, appreciate all the work that you're doing. This is something you're obviously super educated on and passionate about, and have the tools and resources and meanings to actually make a huge impact. And hopefully, we can change that 100 years to something that's way, way, way shorter than that.
I couldn't agree anymore. But thank you everyone for kind of tuning in and kind of listening to Noah and I. Everything that he kind of said was amazing, and having this conversation was absolutely incredible. But thank you so much, and please follow the UN Women for more information, especially with their upcoming campaign, to stay engaged, stay informed, and have a great rest of everyone's day in whatever time zone you're in. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye, UN women. Bye, everybody. Thank you.